That's why I say, well, let's rule out all the natural things. I think we reasonably did. It's how reasonable are we? I mean, do you keep probing until you find a hole somewhere, or at some point common sense kicks in and says, you know what, that's enough. I mean, I believe this person. They described a conversation occurring over here or circumstance occurring over here. They were over here, outside of their bodily sensory awareness. And when you see this 20, 30, 40, 60 times, you get the picture. And I myself, I've only seen it a couple times in my practice, but I believe those couple times were very real. I believe that the people were not lying to me. And when I just put that together with all the other doctors who've reported similar phenomenon, it makes sense to me.
You may be talking about a case by name that is famous in America called Pam Reynolds. Pam Reynolds was a lady who had a big aneurysm in her brain and was operated by Dr. Spetzler, who is a very well-known aneurysm surgeon from Barrow Institute of Neurological Surgery. In that patient, they had to cool her down and they had to bring her function down to stop the blood flow to the brain for a while. As I said during previous discussion, when you bring the patient's temperature down, the brain activity decreases. So when the temperature normally is 36 degrees centigrade, core temperature, when it goes to 20 degrees, the brain is only 25% working. So even if there's a flat line, you cannot call them dead because the patient is not under normal core temperature. So you have to bring them to normal core temperature, and then if they are flatline, that's when you call them brain dead. So when the core temperature is low, you cannot call them brain dead and say, well, their consciousness came out. No, they're not brain dead. That's the first thing. The second thing is, in that most important experience, there were three things she said. She said, I heard the sound of a drill. I heard the sound of Hotel California movie song playing. Both of them were correct.
More significantly, her eyes were taped shut and she had the plugs in her ears. She was hooked up to EEG and they do the click, and so forth, and so she had the plugs in her ears. She described seeing the bone saw that was used on her head. Now, according to the surgeon who did the experiment, he didn't know what that, because it was a brand new bone saw, he didn't know what it looked like before the surgery. I used to teach anatomy, and I used to have a bone saw that I would crack skulls open with, and it looked like a little circular saw. This was entirely different than the standard old bone saw. This bone saw looked more like an electric toothbrush, and she described it like an electric toothbrush in a case that looked like a socket wrench, and that's exactly what it looked like. Now, she could be lying, and she could have snuck and discussed it with the surgeon beforehand, and they could have collaborated on this. It's the only natural explanation, other than pure luck. She could have just guessed what the bone saw looked like.
Dr. Palavelli, can you make comment on that?
In her claim, I got to go back and look at it. I don't think she claimed that she repeated the conversations. She did, I don't think so. I got to check it out. You're claiming that she repeated the conversations. I got to verify that. What I read is that is a reciprocating saw. And it's possible, as I said, that she could have known. What I am saying is that I'm not saying that she's lying. There are many, many possibilities of how you could have an idea of what kind of saw it is.
So by process of elimination, let's just say she didn't see it.
If she said, well, this saw looked like a toothbrush, what does it mean?
An electric toothbrush.
What does it mean?
Electric toothbrushes all pretty much look similar. Okay, there's not a lot of variety.
No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, when she says that it looks like an electric toothbrush,
yeah,
the drills that we use do not look like electric toothbrush.
One of the most compelling examples of an out-of-body, near-death experience is the case of Pam Reynolds. At age 35, Reynolds was diagnosed with a life-threatening brain aneurysm. Her only hope was to have a very unusual operation. In order to save her life, doctors would have to drain the blood out of Pam Reynolds' head. What's more, her body temperature would be lowered to 60 degrees, her heartbeat and breathing would stop completely, and her brain waves would be flattened. Doctors who perform this intense procedure have nicknamed it standstill because, for all intents and purposes, Pam Reynolds would be dead. But was she?
The process of death, scientifically, now is known to be a process and not a point in time. It starts with normal waking reality and ends up in irreversible death. During this process, the body dies at different rates. The problem we have as scientists and physicians is to determine when the brain is actually dead, i.e. when the person is actually dead.
In the case of Pam Reynolds, one of the surgeon's main concerns was seizure activity. To guard against this and other complications, Pam's brain and body were extensively instrumented and monitored, which makes what happened next even more intriguing.
Pam Reynolds had a very deep near-death experience at the time that she had documented no brainwave activity, no brainstem activity. So this eliminates the possibility that this was a seizure phenomenon, because during her experience she had no seizure activity on the EEG. In addition, she had plugs in both of her ears, so she could not have physically heard what was being discussed in the operating room, and she could recall the accurate discussions that were going on at the time that she was having her experience.
Okay, I'm going in, make it quick.
But perhaps the most compelling piece of evidence in the Reynolds case is the detail with which Pam was able to describe a particular surgical tool. During her out-of-body experience, Pam saw a tool which she would later say looked like an electric toothbrush with a dent in it. She also noticed that the tool had interchangeable blades. These were kept in something that looked like a socket wrench case. How could Pam Reynolds have described with such amazing accuracy the details of what took place in the operating room when she was supposedly dead?
If she claims that my body was hovering and I saw exactly what Dr. Spetzler was doing, I want her to describe the instrument in more detail, not it looked like a toothbrush. To me, it's not sufficient to claim that it's evidence of extracorporeal consciousness.
Okay.
It's too general of a statement, is what I'm saying.
Okay, we're moving on to the next video clip. Dr. Palavalli, can you please preface the video clip and then give explanation to it?
This is kind of the summary for the idea of soul and the implications of the soul and the philosophical worldview.
We're now moving to the video clip of Dr. Palavalli.
Brain science in 21st century is explaining all the components of the near-death experience through the structure and function of the brain, which is the seat of our consciousness. This new knowledge refutes the age-old beliefs that near-death experience is evidence for existence of immaterial soul, spirit, or extracorporeal consciousness independent of a functioning body. Consequently, existence of afterlife is not possible either. But the believers may not accept this conclusion because of faith based on emotional need for comfort from the exquisite awareness of one's own mortality. To them, the interpretation and significance will be different than what scientific investigation arrives at. Strangely, the faithful of one religion arrive at a different assumption than the faithful of another religion, each with their own imaginary version of afterlife, hell, heaven, and God. This, unfortunately, divides humans to the extent of killing one another from religious conflicts for salvation in an afterlife. The truth derived from scientific observation, on the other hand, shows that all humans are one. As a neurosurgeon, I have operated on the brains of Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and Jews. When I open their skulls, their brains look the same to me. There is only one kind of morphine to take care of their pain, no matter what their faith is. By the way, there is no heterosexual or a homosexual morphine either. All humans living on Earth right now came from a single group of ancestors in Africa. We have the DNA to prove it. Hopefully, realization of that truth will enlighten humans to appreciate universal brotherhood, pursue love and happiness in this one and only life. We are all one. We came from a single source of a group of humans from Africa, and every person that's walking on the face of the earth has the same identical mitochondrial DNA, which tells us that we have a single female ancestor. We are all brothers, but we kill one another in the name of God and religion.
Thank you, Dr. Palavalli, for your viewpoint, and we need to move to the next question. What is the nature of a soul from a body that has donated the heart, which is in this world in a different person from the person that died, or a baby born with anencephaly, that's without a brain? Dr. Guy, could you respond?
Boy, if I had godlike powers, I could answer all those questions. I do not. Now, the thing is that when people lose an arm or a leg or a kidney, they don't have consciousness problems. They don't experience out-of-body problems or experiences or anything like that. Only brain problems. When people are under deep anesthesia or with near-death experiences, these are the people that have the full-blown near-death experiences. The idea being that it's associated somehow with brain, not other body parts, not the belly, not the heart, but the brain. Now, with regard to what about kids who are born without brains? I have absolutely no idea. If we listen to the anecdotal reports of children who cross over to the other side and report the people that they see, very often they describe unborn children, children who were stillborn and so forth, seeing siblings that they never met before and then coming back and their parents say, yeah, you had a sibling. Or you had a brother that died and we never told you about that. That's, if you look it up, you'll see there are many examples of that sort of thing. I don't know. This question suggests that if we don't know the specific details about eternal life in heaven or hell, it must not be real. Now, the other end of the spectrum is that people take a look at near-death experiences and they get so excited about them that they decide that, well, we can read about near-death experiences and we can develop a compendium of all spiritual and universal knowledge. I think both positions are incorrect. In your video, you made the comment that the soul and spirit are immaterial, invisible, can't be heard, can't be touched, can't be perceived in any way, and therefore it's somehow not scientific. I disagree with that. There are many things that we know exist by indirect means. For example, relativity is believed to be a fact now because of multiple lines of indirect evidence. We believe in the presence of extrasolar planets, and we have believed in them way before we were able to actually visualize them. We started believing in extrasolar, it was announced that extrasolar planets were real back in 1995. And at that time, the only way we knew that they were real was because of the radial path of the star itself. We could tell because of the changes in astrometric radial velocity that there must be some heavy object changing the course of the star. It was indirect. It wasn't until 2003, with the development of the Spitzer Space Telescope, that we could actually visualize these extrasolar planets. We had no direct evidence. Indirect evidence is still evidence, okay? It doesn't matter whether we know what direction the toilets flush on these planets to say that the planet exists or not. We don't need to know the details. The question is, do they exist or not? And indirect evidence is evidence.
You gave an example of something that's concrete and visible.
Have you seen them? Have you seen extrasolar planets?
No, here. Planet we have seen.
Have you seen extrasolar planets?
I'm going to come to that.
Okay,
I'm going to that.
All right.
Planet is something that we live on. It's a concrete thing, right?
Well, concrete is on the planet, yes, okay.
People have seen Jupiter, and since the advent of telescope, they have seen more planets. And then, at that time, they used to think that solar system was the entire universe, because they had no knowledge to be able to see beyond, right? Until they figured out that the Hubble effect, which is because the stars are receding, the light that comes from them will change the spectrum when we look at their light. That's how people realized, wait a minute, this universe is expanding. Until that time, they had no clue that the universe was expanding. They thought it was static. And until recently, they thought solar system was the entire universe.